Hello everyone, welcome to another video, Talking Geeky Stuff with me, and today's video is Morbius, my thoughts and a quick review. Before we start, there will be spoilers, please keep that in mind. I try my best not to, but there will be spoilers, so you have been warned, so 1, 2, 3, here we go. So my thoughts, Morbius is a character from the Spider-Man world, or the Spider-Man universe, that Sony is trying to build. SSU Spider-Man Universe, Sony Spider-Man Universe, SSU. So Michael Morbius is a character that was first introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man 101, I think, in 1971, the year of 1971. Just a little bit older than me. There you go, a little hint on how old I am. So at first he was one of Spider-Man's villains, but later on, I think during the 90s, they kind of revamped his story and made him more of a anti-hero. They focus on his science and how he was trying to find a cure for his blood disease and how he became the living vampire. One of the things I've always liked about Morbius is, like in many comics, both DC and Marvel, these characters have a supernatural origin, or how they become this kind of monster through supernatural means. But with Morbius, is more science-based. He's a biochemist. He went to cure his blood disease by using science to change that. So that's a good touch. I really like that. And especially in this day and age where I think going the route of science to create a monster, create a superhero, I find it more interesting than just mythical, legendary, or supernatural means. So I prefer that way. So back to the movie. It stars Jared Leto, great actor, always liked him. It's just his second, well, 1.5 movie that he's done based on a superhero or comic. Last one he did was The Joker, which is a shame. I'd love to have seen him have a full movie playing the Joker. And now he's on the Sony side, or Marvel side, doing Morbius. And the film starts off, he's in Costa Rica, I think. He's in Costa Rica, South America. Helicopter flies through some amazing landscapes, the forest, lands on the edge of a cliff that goes into a cave, where the cave's full of vampire bats. And he cuts his hands, and all the bats gets attracted to him. Then it kind of cuts and goes back 20 years ago to the place, like a hospital for kids with a rare disease, and that's where we get introduced to his friend Milo, or what was his name again, Lucius, can't remember, played by Matt Smith, another great actor, famous for Doctor Who, and their relationship. I actually wanted that the flashback scene to be a little bit longer. I don't usually like flashback scenes, but this one I actually didn't mind it. I would like to have a little bit longer, because I found their relationship pretty interesting. The two characters, have they become friends? I would like to have kind of seen more of that, and their relationship with the Doctor, the Guardian, who looks after them. And also there's a scene where I thought this film was always really quick, like 5 minutes here, then it goes to the next scene, and so on. There's a scene in the beginning, the flashback scene, where Milo was having a blood transfusion or something, and then the machine breaks down. With quick thinking, Michael quickly takes a little something from a pen, a little spring, connects it, and saves Milo's life. And because of that, the doctor say, "Oh, you are amazing. You are gifted. I'm going to send you to a school of gifted children in New York." I thought, does that little reference to X-Men? I thought, and then I thought maybe not, because X-Men now back with Marvel, Disney. So I would like to have seen more of Michael Morbius' genius when he was a young age. Just that scene, boom, then it goes back to the present day. He's given like a prize, I think maybe a Nobel Prize or something like that, for his genius of creating artificial blood. Then he cuts the next scene. He's in a hospital, helping a young girl with her condition, and she talks about he humiliated this king and queen, the royal family of the, I think, Sweden. I would like to have seen that as well. So it's really cut here, then straight forward to the next scene, straight for next scene. It's almost like they wanted to move the story on, but sometimes you need to slow down, and I think this film was rushing to the next scene, kind of get it over and done with. This is one of the films I felt that could have been longer. Like I mentioned, the flashback scene where they could have focused a lot more on Michael and Milo's relationship, and show a bit more about Michael's genius from the young age to now, things like that. And then another scene goes straight into his lab. His assistant doctor discovers that he's doing some questionable research with bats, and she finds out his password to activate this kind of big I don't know what, it's like a little bat cave or something, like with all the bats, vampire bats. And there's a question about if they should do it, if it's moral to do all this. They discussed about evolution. It's 100,000 years. That's Michael said we need to advance science by using the technology now. And I would like to see them discuss more about the science, because Michael talks about these vampire bats are the only creatures to evolve purely just feeding off blood. I like to focus a bit more on the scientific part of things, and the more mortality, not mortality, if it's morals to continue doing these experiments. And so I would like to see more of that discussion going on. And then there's a funny part, is like she talks about this is top secret, you can hold this, you can keep a secret, and then another nurse walks in as if, oh, here you are, the bats are flying around, they're conducting these questionable experiments, and another nurse walks in, oh, your patient's hyper, having issues. And I was like, okay, so this is supposed to be top secret, and this nurse knows, this doctor knows. It's like, oh, no big deal. I thought that's a bit weird. So he goes back in and saves the child, puts her in coma or something like that. And then, before that, they tried on like a lab rat, or not a rat, I mean a mouse dies, and then once they help the kid, the nurse or doctor turns around and says, hey, Michael, this seems to work. And then he goes and visits Milo in his big mansion. We find out he's the one who funded all the research and the hospital and so on. And speaking about Milo's character, like I mentioned, I wish there was a bit more backstory about him. Where did he get this money from? You kind of knew from the beginning that he was a rich kid. He probably inherited from his father, his mother. I'd like to see a bit more about that, what kind of business they're into, and so on. A bit more of a backstory about that. They talk about, just this experiments seems to be working. They need to go in, they need the facilities, they need a big ship in international waters, so the laws doesn't affect them. So he goes to the ship. Like I mentioned, and like I said, it's almost like quickly trying to get to the point for Michael to get injected, and suddenly turns into Morbius, and so the film can show you his powers and so on. So very quick cuts into the next scene, there's no time to breathe, there's no time to really savor the moment, so to speak. And like I said, they could have built more character in those times. So I felt that was an issue as well. I know there was like productions issues, delays upon delays, the pandemic didn't help out. So you can kind of see it was some kind of weird cuts here and there sort of thing. So they go on the ship, and they Michael speaking to his dictaphone, saying it's time for the human trial. So he's the one who's going to try it out. There's a great scene there where he kind of takes his clothes off. You can see how frail and thin his colors are, kind of green and purple, dark gray, and you can see his body very sick. His jawline was very thin. His eyes are popping out, all white around it, like almost like he's dying. And I like that because it sets up the scene afterwards when he injects himself, and that's when he starts to turn into the living vampire. and then these noise happen, and then you get these kind of hired guns, mercenaries. One of the guys comes out to check, and typical, typical bad guy, typical cannon fodder, just to use him to showcase Michael Morbius' new powers. Comes in, kills him, and the rest of the other Marines, or not Marines, hired guns will go around finding him, trying to kill him, and then Michael just wipes them all out, sucks all the bloods out. That's also problem is, why did I hire these mercenaries? And you don't know what's going to happen, right? Why would they hire these mercenaries? I know they're doing kind of dodgy work in international waters, but it's kind of like, well, all these hired guns with machine guns, you don't know, they can turn around and just kind of rob you or take you as hostage. So I didn't really understand that. Maybe just to set up the whole scene, bunch of ex-military, to showcase how tough Michael was once he turned into Morbius, kills a whole bunch of them, 8 of them, sucks their blood, just to kind of set up, oh wow, this is his powers. It's pretty tough, isn't it? Speaking about his powers, I like the transformation. I like the way he kind of turns into mist almost and flies around. His claws. I like I don't know if they use any practical effects, probably just CG really. I liked the look of him. I think they made Jared Leto actually. I like the portrayal of Morbius in the film. That's how I would portray him in live action myself. So I think Sony did a good job in that. So anyway, the film finishes and he wakes up, and straight away you see he looks in the mirror like a reflection. He's all muscle, jacked up, six-packed. That kind of scene. That scene reminds me of the scene in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, the very first one, where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man gets bitten by the spider. He goes home, he kind of falls asleep, then he wakes up, looks in the mirror, and he's all jacked up. Kind of reminds me of that, but more serious, of course. Anyway, so he wakes up all jacked up. He looks around. All these people killed. Is it me? Quickly checks out all the CCTV footage, sees himself killing everyone. He calls for rescue, and he jumps off the ship and so on. And then he kind of okay, they got FBI, the police will come in, try and find the murderer. And then you see Matt Smith in his mansion room looking at the news reports, and he knows it's Michael. He goes to Michael's place and sees Michael locked himself in a glass sort of room, and they get into a bit of a fight. Say, you need to give me this, give me this, because and then the typical friend will say, no, you can't. This is worse than dying. You're gonna be a monster. And Miles doesn't care. He just wants to be cured. And then they have a big fight, and he runs off, and so on. And then there's a scene where one of the nurses, was walking in a corridor in the hospital, and the lights keep on flickering every time she walks. The lights go off and on, just to set this kind of moody scene, and she gets killed. I didn't like that scene. It's like, that's a bit weird. I know they're trying to go for a horror effect, but I didn't think it worked, because you're in a state-of-the-art hospital funded by rich people. Why are these lights flickering? It makes no sense. I know they're trying to get some sort of atmosphere, so the monster comes in and sucks the blood like a vampire movie or something like that. But I just didn't think it worked, because it just makes no sense. Why would a hospital with a state-of-the-art technology have flickering lights wherever you walk down the corridor? It's stupid. Let's talk about a film back in 1994 called The Wolf, or Wolf, starring Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, and James Spader, because that storyline is very similar to this storyline. So when the nurse gets killed, everybody thinks he's Morbius, because Morbius wakes up and there's a big hoo-ha, the nurse is dead and the blood is being drained out, and Michael Morbius thinks it's him. The reason why I referenced the Jack Nicholson film, Wolf, is because the storyline is like that. If you've ever seen it, you should watch it. It's actually a pretty decent film. So Jack Nicholson gets bitten by a dog, what he thinks is a dog, and he starts to turn into a wolf. And then suddenly all these murders start happening around him, and Jack Nicholson thinks it's him. But during the film itself, another spoiler, Jack Nicholson actually bites James Spader. but it's just a quick thing. You kind of forget that. Then at the end, or when they do the investigation, you find out it's actually James Spader he was doing all the murders, and he enjoys doing that. He wants to be the wolf, he loves it, and so on. So that's the kind of storyline that this has. So when you find that Milo's the one who does all the killing, he wants to stay this strong and powerful, which is understandable, because if you watch the beginning sequence, the scene where he's a kid, he gets bullied and being a weak man. Finally, he's a strong man. He can do what he wants. You kind of either stay sane like Morbius, become a good guy and strong, understand the wrongs he's doing, or you can go the other way and go crazy, and the ego trip kicks in, just like Milo did. But at the same time, I mentioned for the whole film, I would like to see the characters get fleshed out a bit more, because you don't get to understand Milo that well to understand something has changed. Because when his doctor comes in and confronts him about this, he a little back and forth, and he kills him so he can call Michael to come over, or set a trap, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I thought, okay, this guy's kind of like almost like your father and your friend, and he killed him so quick. I was like, huh? I mean, I'd like to see more humanity into him. I know they're trying to go for this guy. It's a psychopath now, but at the same time, we didn't understand Milo's character enough to suddenly become this character, and what led him to become this character. He didn't really show kind of like a psychopath personality, because the film was too short in a way. They could have focused a bit more on the relationship, the upbringing, maybe, like I said many times, the backstory of each character. So anyway, then of course they find out it was Milo who's doing it, have a big confrontation at the end, a big fight. I thought we'd done okay. Sometimes he was a bit kind of speedy all around the place. I like the effects, but I would say that if you had any kind of eye issues, it might be a bit bad, because it was filmed at night. The scene wasn't in night time, and then the power was kind of like misty, flying around and so on. So it might, to me, it's okay, but there may be probably people who out there who's got some issues with their eyes and may not be able to follow the scene that well. And then at the end, please stay to the end, right to the end, because there's actually two post-credit scenes, both starring Michael Keaton, which is in the trailer, because I don't know, Sony kind of messed that up a bit by actually seeing Michael Keaton in the trailer. I don't know why they did that for. Sony building their own Spider-Man universe, so I hope they do, because Sony's been doing pretty good movies recently. So anyway, let me just wrap this up. My thoughts. I think this movie isn't that. It's not amazing. It's not good, but it's not bad. It's, like I said, it's not bad. It's okay. It's not going to change the world in comics. I think I like the portrayal of Morbius. He looked pretty good. It's kind of how I would portray him as well. Jared Leto is a great actor. I think I feel kind of bad for him, because it's his second comic character. Joker for DC. I thought he was pretty good, but like I said to my friend many times, it's like we don't know how good his Joker could have been, because we don't see him a lot. And this is his second try in comics. And like I said, I think he does a pretty good Morbius, but the film kind of let him down a little bit. But if you have time spare, check it out. But if you haven't seen films like The Batman, or even recently Sonic 2, check those movies out before you check this out. And if you're a busy person, you don't go cinema much, is it worth the £12-15? I would say no. Yeah, I have a cinema pass, so I can get tickets. But if it's worth that £12 to £15, or in America $18-20, I'll say no. Especially in today's world, where movies come out on streaming services just 2 months down the line, so you can always wait for that on one of the streaming services. Like I said, it's okay film. It's worth checking out if you have plenty of time, cinema pass, or you're just completely bored. Anyway, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more talking geeky stuff. Until next time, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, and please stay safe. Goodbye.